Hello, I'm your host, Lord Deathman, and welcome to the Podcast of Champions. On this week's show, we are going to review episode 8, Narkina 5 of the hit show Andor. Andor continues to be one of the best shows on Disney Plus right now, but doesn't have the following that you'd expect for a show of this kind of quality. It is bereft of some of the surprises that you might get in a typical Star Wars show or the cliffhangers. Some would say those are artificial, or some might say that they're not, but it isn't exactly structured the way you'd get a typical Star Wars show. Things seem to be a little bit more deliberate, a little bit more slower with this particular show. And on today, when we talk about this episode, I bring all this up because Narkina 5 really fits into a very deliberate framework of showing you what the penal system for the Imperials is like. It goes into excruciating detail about it and what it's like to be in a forced labor camp under the Imperials. So, basically, this episode catches up with Cassian. The Empire isn't aware of his identity during his arrest, and we're going to do a deep dive and analysis of this episode. Be careful for spoilers. We are going to be talking about the main plot points in the episode. And of course, if you'd like to join the discussion here, please feel free to jump into the comments if you agree or disagree with anything we're saying. You can also catch us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, all of that kind of stuff. And without further ado, I'm going to jump into the arena with the champions. Quick introductions right here. We have Merv joining us today to talk Andor. How you feeling?
Good. How are you?
All right. We've also got the Grandmaster presiding over the ceremonies.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking, Grandmaster. I'm a little disheveled because I just hopped out of my car to be on this microphone. But always glad to be here. And last but certainly not least, we have the fan without fear. Taylor, tell him how you're doing today.
Hey, doing great.
Awesome. So I'm really excited to talk about this episode, even though it was a little slower than previous episodes. I'm very curious to see how things are going to turn out for the rating section of this episode. I think it was very strong, but I'm very curious to know what the champions thought. So as always on this show, folks at home, we do 3 rounds of discussion on this. We talk quick impressions of the show, anything that might have stood out as a big thing that about the episode. Then we also talk deep dive. We do a little bit of analysis, try to pull in more detail into the discussion, more analysis. And then finally, we give the episode a ratings in our third round of discussion. So we're going to start this first round with just quick impressions, yay or nay on the episode, gentlemen. This week, I'd like to start with Taylor. What did you think of Narkina 5?
I liked it. It was a good episode. I'm not saying it was the strongest episode of the season. Obviously, not everything can be the strongest episode of the season, but it was a good episode. The tone and the aesthetics in the prison scene were really reminiscent of a movie. It was, in fact, the first movie that George Lucas directed. The first feature film that George Lucas directed is a movie called THX 1138, and it felt like that world was grabbed out of that movie and placed into this episode, into that prison scene, the prison life part of this episode. So I think that was done as an homage for George Lucas. But as far as everything else, as far as the rest of the episode, it was kind of baby steps. I mean, we don't know how long he's going to be in prison. I'm assuming he's going to get out probably next episode, one way or another. And there was just some more of the setting of the pieces of what's going on around the Empire at the time. So it was definitely a slower episode, but still good. And of course, the writing and the acting is always top notch on this show.
Yeah, there was a surprise guest star on this episode that I don't think most of us knew was coming. And when we get back to you, Taylor, on the deep dive, I'd like to discuss his appearance, so forth and so on. That got spoiled for me. But it was still always great to see this guy jump into the fray as well. But we'll start talking about that in the deep dive. Merv, what was your take on Narkina 5?
Yeah, good episode. The prison stuff, I feel like, for me at least, was the highlight. it was really cool to see Andor in this situation, this really bad situation now, and it's kind of funny that the Empire actually has him and they're after him and they don't know they have him. I just find that funny. They're using all these resources now to try to find him, and you already got him. You just don't know what his name is.
Right.
And the Mon Mothma stuff, I think they moved all the other storylines pretty progressively as well. There wasn't a whole lot of action, but there didn't really need, it's not every episode needs to have action. But the Mon Mothma stuff moved along pretty well. I get a bad feeling about that. I feel like that situation is going to get volatile pretty soon. And then we saw the ramifications of everything on Ferrix with the Empire listening in and then, coming down and torturing people and capturing Bix and, really bringing the hammer down on Ferrix, which is, kind of Andor's, for lack of a better word, home planet. So I'm just wondering if that's going to be kind of his emotional investment into the rebellion when he gets out of prison and he comes back to Ferrix, and whatever consequences he inadvertently caused, to bring harm to his people, so to speak.
Right.
Right. So it's all. I feel like this episode was a lot of leading to places, which is fine. You need to fill the gaps, but that's kind of what it felt like to me.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And, there's also a little bit of exploration of the different facets of the rebellion. It seems there's a spectrum of people who are involved in the rebellion. And again, not only did we get one great guest star, I forgot there were two of them that were actually pretty amazing in this episode. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get back to you, Merv, in the deep dive discussion. Thank you for your comments. Grandmaster, certainly not the least of us here. We need to hear from our MC. We need to hear from the champion of champions. What did you think of Narkina 5?
I thought it was a good, solid episode. Not, like Taylor said, the best of the lot, but certainly not the worst I've seen. It's still great. This show continues to amaze me. What I found really interesting, I just did a rewatch like 10 minutes ago before we got on, is that actually you see like two major. I think the plot of the whole show, as it will progress over the seasons, is now starting to really develop. On the one side, you have the rise of the rebellion and all its internal struggle to get off the ground, actually. You have Luton too scared to let Andor walk around and actually making calls that hurt people, that even may cause people not to like the rebels as well. Right. Because what they did to Ferrix was not real great, although it's their agenda. And on the other side, you have the hunt for Luton, basically, by the Empire. Because that scene where they sit all at the ISB, where they all sit in a circle, Andor's picture comes up. His holographic picture comes up. And they discuss Andor, but they are not really after Andor. They are after Luton, or Axis, as they know him. And they do, and Miro is intent to crush this rebellion in its infancy, basically. And she's willing to be maybe even a little bit over ambitious for the bureaucracy where she works in. I have a point on that in our deeper dive later. But these two plot lines, I think they will develop all over this show, actually, not over this season alone, but over the 5 seasons or whatever they're planned for this show. And I thought this episode actually really established that. And I think that's great. So maybe it's not most heavy on the action, or there's not a lot of character development or development per se for all the characters in the storylines, but it was clear that to me at least, that those two major storylines will be the beat of the show, or whatever you guys call it in America. But
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it does take you deeper into the world of Andor. And as far as Supervisor Miro is concerned, the actress who's doing that performance is doing a fantastic job. I first thought of her as very much as a careerist and a climber who was just trying to get rank and position, but she's really passionate about putting the rebellion down. And she seems to believe in the cause, so much so that she's willing to make a lot of waves amongst her superiors and colleagues to do so. But I hope we do get a chance to discuss that, guys, as we go around in this next round or the deep dive discussion in this. So I want to go back to Taylor to get your in-depth analysis of it. What did you like from this episode? What didn't you like? You were certainly the first to bring up the THX 1138 1971 homage that they did. I thought that was a great aesthetic feel to the episode. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. Everyone knows, was it Robert Duvall? Am I?
Yes.
Yes.
Robert Duvall was the star. Donald Pleasance was in it. It's
yes.
An interesting movie.
Yeah, it is. It is. But please tell us what you thought and give us a little bit more detail this time around.
Well, let me just follow up. I agree about Mira, or whatever her name is, the officer.
Think it's Miro. It's like
Miro.
It's Mwero. So I think it's Miro.
Okay.
But
I thought it was Mira. Miro. But yeah, I agree. The actress is doing a fantastic job, and I'm really liking the character, which of course sounds strange because she's a villain.
Yeah.
But villains don't have to be, Snidely Whiplash people that you automatically despise, especially in something like this. She reminds me of an old, classic TV show called Rat Patrol, where the primary antagonist in that, which is an action adventure show set in World War II. Primary antagonist in that was a German captain, Captain Dietrich, who was played by a wonderful actor named Eric Braeden. And you never got the impression from him that he was some kind of wild-eyed Nazi fanatic. You always got the impression that he was a soldier doing his job who believed in his duty, and that made him much more relatable as a character. Whether he was a villain or not. And I get the same from this this woman playing Miro. I think she's doing a great job. And again, she appears to be very dedicated to her duty, and whether that means she's a she's a Palpatine stan, or she's just wants to do well in her job, and and believes she's doing the right thing by following her orders and doing her duty to the best of her ability. And we'll find out more about her as it goes on. But I agree, it's going really well. And again, as back to the aesthetic of the prison, again, I like the THX 1138, totally dehumanized. Everything was cold and sterile, and everyone moves at the set time. And when the light goes on, you do this, and when the bell rings, you do this, and when the guard walks in, you put your hands on top of your head and stand and look. All again, total dehumanization. And of course, one of the guest stars, Andy Serkis. I mean, oh my God,
fantastic.
Andy Serkis, who's been in Star Wars before, but he's all because he was Snoke in the sequel movies.
That Taylor.
Yes, he was Snoke, Grand Leader Snoke, or whatever, Supreme Leader, whatever they called him. But of course, he's been in the MCU. He's been Lord of the Rings. He's in Planet of the Apes. I mean, is there a fantastic genre franchise that this guy has not been in? I don't know. Has he been in Star Trek yet? I don't remember, but he's been in Batman. So I mean, the guy's amazing, and he's such a great actor. Just no matter what he's doing, he just feels so real all the time.
Yeah.
So that was great. And then of course the other guest appearance was Saul Guerrera, who we knew was going to be in the show, but I didn't know he was going to show up in this episode.
Yeah.
And my biggest takeaway from that scene was how fractured the rebellion is. It's almost like there's not one rebellion. There's different factions that have different goals and different reasons for opposing the Empire. And that was what came out of that conversation to the most for me.
Yeah, that was a brilliantly acted exchange, but between Forrest Whitaker is the name of that actor, and the actor playing Lucent, who has many sons who also act. I forget his name at this moment, guys. But if anyone,
Stellan Skarsgård.
Stellan Skarsgård. There we go. That exchange was really pivotal between the two of them. So even though Forrest Whitaker's only in for a short moment, he makes the most of it in his guest appearance. And it was great to see the character of Saw Gerrera back. So, but Taylor, anything else you wanted to share that stood out about the episode to you?
No, I mean, those were the big things. Like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of movement. I liked how Andor adjusted to his environment in the prison.
Yeah.
The acting, his acting almost without saying a word, his acting throughout the prison scenes was really good.
Yeah. Yeah. He has the look of a man who can't believe what's happening to him, but at the same time is rapidly trying to adapt to what's going on around him. It was really great acting with the economy of dialogue, and his exchanges with Circus they were top notch. The acting, it's like everybody was like, yeah, I'm not going to be the one to drag this show down in terms of acting. I'm going to, eat hot sauce, whatever it is that takes to get the emotions on, I'm going to do it. But yes, thank you for your comments, Taylor. I'm going to jump over to Merv once again for your deep dive analysis. What'd you like? What didn't you like? What really stood out in terms of this episode to you?
Yeah, the big thing that stood out right away was like you guys just mentioned, Cassian's prison sequence without like really saying anything. I think he has like 4 lines in this episode, and most of them are like one-word questions, like just getting the directives in the prison kind of. But like I got the sense through most of that sequence, especially when he's getting carted in, he's just taking note of everything, because at this point we know how savvy he is and how quick he is and everything like that. And whenever I first watched it, I got the big impression that he was like already looking for weaknesses in their security, ways out, where's the exit, what's over this way, how do they operate, and he got a lot of that information right out of the gate, in assuming he's going to remember all that stuff. They've kind of flashed forward a month, but assuming he's going to remember all that stuff, I mean, if anything, like a prison's like anything else, I'm sure it's all like it's the same thing over and over again. You know what I mean? They're not going to drastically change protocols. So I still think this is going to lead to some kind of a prison break, because obviously we know he doesn't die in this prison. But I'm really interested to see how he pulls it off. And the bleakness of that prison, how it's just it's a work camp, and we don't really know what they're building, but they're building a lot of them. Whatever they are.
They might be building like K2 droids, because of the it's like a big black sort of axle thing. I was like, I don't know, but yeah, they're building some widget.
Yeah, at first, whenever I saw a water planet with underground labs, I'm like, are they doing something with cloning again? Just that's where my brain went. But aside from the generic answer of something for the Death Star or war machines, essentially, I'd imagine it's something along those lines. I don't even know if it needs to be something crazy big reveal. But yeah, I love those scenes, and again, with Diego Luna's ability to act without even saying a word, it was spectacular. I enjoyed how all of the storylines now are kind of tied together through, like, they even brought Cyril in with Deidre, and I thought that was going to lead to even more stuff, and it kind of seemed like she just left them, unhappy and disgruntled in that room. But like, I was kind of like, okay, now he's going to get pulled into with Deidre, and it's going to make sense, and his character development in the past 6 episodes is going to go somewhere, and I think it is going somewhere, but I was expecting him to, get pulled in with her, and I feel like now maybe he's gonna go around her, like he's been kind of going outside the box with his.
He's a wild card.
He's a wild card. I think he's a wild card pro Empire, so that's dangerous.
But we know he can't join the Empire because he lacks a British accent.
Exactly. He can only go so high. His ranks
he can't hope to have a career as an officer in the Imperial.
You're just a lowly security guard. But yeah, I liked how everything is kind of revolving around Andor now, like plus or minus. Obviously, like Grandmaster said, especially with the Saw Gerrera scenes, they've set up, for the layman who doesn't do much digging into Star Wars lore, it's very interesting to me to find out that like the rebellion started as all these little militant groups who probably have no
connection to each other.
Real want to even work together.
Yeah.
They all want to see the Empire fall, but they don't want to work with each other. So that actually adds, to that Rebel Alliance part of the thing. Like, okay, so they actually did have to overcome like quite a bit of obstacles, which is themselves to topple this Empire. Which it's going to be. I think it's going to be really fun to watch, see play out. And I do think I think Grandmaster hit the nail on the head with that. I think that's obviously a big storyline here, more than just the character Andor. It's going to be the rebellion, But yeah, aside from just, I can't even think of anything that I really didn't like. It was just like there wasn't that wow moment,
Right.
It was just a very meaty, kind of setting again. I feel like setting the stage again for a lot of different aspects of it.
Yeah,
but
I was just going to say, let's not forget that Cinta and Vel are still in the background hunting for Andor to affect his assassination. And we got a nice exchange from them as partners who, are trying to balance their relationship and the rebellion and the needs of the rebellion. We know where Cinta stands on that.
I'm glad you said that too, because Vel dropped an interesting piece of information, or Cinta did, about Vel, where Vel comes from like a rich family, supposedly. Yep. So I wonder if that's gonna be a reveal at some point, like who her family is.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope we can deep dive into those two. I really like those characters for such little screen time they end up getting so far in the back half of the season. So I do hope we get a little bit more from them. But everybody has a part to play. Nobody is extraneous in this thing. When you come on, you get seamlessly weaved into this story. And I really, touching on what you said with all of the different factions of the rebellion, we finally see Saw Gerrera, who is a militant separatist. He's not using intelligence as a part of his trade craft or spying. This guy he's trying to get munitions. He's trying to build an army. So when he talks to someone like Lucent, it's like, who are you in this thing? I'm getting my hands really dirty, on the ground to fight this war. Whereas you're, kind of, did you do the robbery? Did you not do the robbery? It's Lucent's on a completely different tact. But great observations that you bring up about the rebellion and its sort of fractured nature at this time in Star Wars history. Thanks so much for those comments, Merv. I do want to jump over to Grandmaster now to get your deep dive analysis on the episode. Let me ask you a question. I think that the biggest crime the Empire committed in this episode is not giving anybody any shoes. I mean, that if you have some problems with feet, you might not want to watch Narkina 5 because you are not allowed to wear shoes in this prison. I'm joking here, but still.
Yeah.
Weird touch.
Taking shoes away from prisoners is actually nothing to be joking about. It's a direct parallel with what the Nazis did in their camps in World War II.
Very true.
Yeah. So
bring this back around to a more serious note. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go woke on your ass, but it just reminded me of that.
On shoes.
It really shows how evil this empire actually is. It's just a little hint at what they actually are. They are Nazis. They want to control everything and everyone. But that being said, there was one thing I got a little bit annoyed by it, and that was. After 5 minutes of explaining by the guard and then explaining by the prisoner and then seeing a guy commit suicide, we get it. This prison you cannot break out of.
Right.
I knew that after a minute. I don't need another 10 minutes of a visual explanation or even exposition of that. But I get why they did it. This show is slow and I like it, but some things can be done better, and this was my annoyance for this week.
Mm-hmm.
Cyril, however, redeemed himself in my eyes.
Yeah, he comes back for you.
Yeah, he now had an impact, and I found a strange parallel between him and Miro, because they're both overly ambitious. or for the environment they are working in. And Miro gets praised for it, and Cyril gets demoted for it, stuck away behind a desk somewhere where he tries to be still of service, as he sees it, where the bureaucracy sees him as annoyance. And that he actually appeals to Miro, and actually, I am like you, see me, use me,
Right.
save me from this dead-end job where I'm at. And it falls on deaf ears, and that's strange. So I'm actually hoping that Cyril actually is going to pull a Miro and go around her to get to the big boss. But well, let's wait and see. Beside my annoyance about how they set up this whole prison, but it's fine. I will drop that now. Andor in this episode comes to realize that what he did had more consequences.
Yeah.
And not only for him and for his, and he will find out later, for his friends on Ferrex. I will come back to that in a minute. But also for prisoners who had nothing to do with it. Their sentence got doubled. And yeah, that's he comes to realize that what he did, he may have made a mistake by leaving the rebels, actually, because that brought him into the situation. But also, he cannot tell anybody he was behind the heist on the journey, because they will not like it, because they have faced the consequences of that action from Cassian Andor. So he will not have many friends in prison, I assume. In that prison, one thing I noticed that was right before he went to the floor for the first time, they had to wait for another security guard, and the security guard says, actually, they were a man short down there, so sorry guys, you had to wait for me.
Right.
That prison is heavily understaffed.
Somewhere.
Hmm?
That did seem like it was going somewhere where they had to do that exchange between the men. But it could have been detail that Cassian is kind of watching, that like
Exactly.
this kind of something he can exploit.
They're heavily understaffed, and at a certain moment at the floor, some guy at his table 5, says, "They're up there, they're laughing at us." And actually, Cassian looks up, and you see they just don't care. They just walk by, and they don't pay attention. So I think where the prison break will happen is at some point there's going to be electronic lockdown or something, or an EMP or whatever, something of that nature. And since there's not much staff in that prison, that will help him break out. If I'm totally wrong, you can come back to it, but I have a feeling it will go that way. Well, yeah, you mentioned it. Great to see Force Whitaker. Great to see Andy Serkis. There was another interesting little parallel that was happening. The rebels basically abandon Ferrex because it's a liability for Luton. They know who he is through Andor, and he needs to cut them loose. But on the other side, the moment Biggs keeps hitting that button, hey, I need you guys, I need you guys, I need you guys, that's a cue for the Empire to come to Ferrex and go down extra hard on that planet. So where the rebels leave that planet, it causes even more problems for those people on the planet. And I don't think it will sit well with Biggs, and I can't remember the big guy's name, but you know what I mean. Andor's going to have trouble if he ever goes back to Ferrex. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not going to. And last but not least, Cinta, what's she doing? Sitting behind a window, looking down in the street, hoping that Andor will pass by or something?
Right. Well, Ferrex is probably the last place you're going to find casting an Andor.
Well, he may visit his mom again, but it's hard. But it reminded me a little bit of what shall I say, a rear window or something, where somebody is observing but not doing much. So that was a bit of my deeper dive. And
Yep.
Overall, it's still a great show. I don't need action to enjoy something, and I'm really enjoying this show.
Yeah, it is again a jewel in terms of the Star Wars crown. I do hope they get enough of a critical mass to continue and do the 5 seasons that they plan to fully tell this story arc. But yeah, I think this show silently kind of represents a sea change for the franchise. You know, now it's kind of cool to see people dress up in matching outfits and speak in British accents and kind of have this kind of foul idea of idea of fascism. But now we're seeing, right, that these guys really are serious about their galactic objectives, and they enforce them with violence, which is the very definition of fascism. So that being said, great to hear all of the comments across the board from the members of the panel. This is the point on the show where we all sort of have to dig deep and give a rating to this particular episode. Guys, so I'm going to start this round off with you, Grandmaster, since you touched on so many different aspects of the episode. What is your rating for Narkina 5?
8 out of 10. It's a little bit lower than the previous episodes, but that's just because there wasn't really much development in the storylines. It just established some things for the greater, bigger picture. And they spend a little bit too much time in explaining how the person works for my taste. And that's why I take off 2 points.
And that's fair. And I could almost agree with you, but I do feel like showing you the rote machinations of the prison and going through it in this kind of tedious detail was almost the point. But you're right. One could say that they might have overdone it just a touch there. But 8 out of 10 from the Grandmaster. You heard it here first. Next, we're going to go to Taylor and get your rating on Narkina 5. What did you think of the episode, 1 to 10 rating?
Yeah, I'll also give it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a really good episode. If I remember right, just to go back, Bix was arrested at the end of the episode, wasn't she?
Yes.
So we don't know what's going to happen there. No, I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, good episode. It was 8 out of 10. Oh, the shoes. Of course, the reason the shoes were taken off was the punishment and the death zaps go through your feet. You notice how the guards were wearing the big rubber boots so that wouldn't kill them, but it's the floor that administers the punishment and the death if you leave your cell. So I thought that was actually pretty creative because it does call back to things like Nazi death camps, as well as a in-universe technological reason for it as well.
Right. Yeah. So, but still, we had to look at those toes. Never gonna forgive Gilroy for that. Toes are creepy.
I totally agree, by the way.
Thank you for the rating, Taylor. Well, we're gonna jump over to Merv. Merv, what do you think of this episode? Rating 1 to 10.
Yes, just speaking of toes real quick, I'm pretty sure Quentin Tarantino directed this episode, so I'm also going to give it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was good quality TV, and just a little nugget of information that I won't take credit for knowing ahead of time, but I found out after the episode. One of the other prisoners at his table is named Melshi, and there is a Melshi in Rogue One who fights alongside Andor in whatever that last planet that they all died on. So that character will be around for a while.
Yeah. Oh wow. So that's awesome. Great find and observation there. I love the way they put these little nuggets into the show that makes the rewatching so much more worth it when you catch a detail like that and you can tie it up to some other piece of media that was released in the past. So good catch there. All right. Ladies and gentlemen at home, you've heard it from the panel. This is an 8 out of 10 show. Any way you slice and dice it, Andor is strong, and we highly recommend that you check it out. Yeah, and guys, before I close out the show proper, I'm going to see if there are any last comments around the table about the episode. Just like Merv had a little something to add. Have we said it all this episode, gentlemen? I think so. It looks like it. So there you have it, guys. Narkina 5, Andor. We're gonna be back, of course, next week to review the next episode of this show. So please do stay tuned to the show. And remember, you can catch us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you do those things in social. I know Elon Musk just took over Twitter, but we're still there. So, check us out. Don't worry about what's going to happen under the new boss. Yeah. Also, if you want to join into the conversation, we highly encourage you to jump into the comments. Let us know if you agreed or disagreed with any of our observations on the episode. You can also join the conversation at sakar.freeforums.net, our forum with a strong, thriving community, lots of discussion going on there, where you can also dive into the conversation. We hope everybody out there is doing well and that you are not the victim of some kind of weird fascism and being forced to wear no shoes. And may the force be with you. Until next time.